Wait a minute. I can't show you the goods without at least showing you how the goods came to be. What's going on, you guys? Welcome back. In the last video, I started showing how I finally realized how to complete my trunk storage modification idea I had way back in 2012, and I tied it in to another idea in which involves the entire trunk being modified. So I showed you that portion, and we got up to the part where I actually made a false floor in the trunk. Now we're up to the other part of the process, and we're gonna go through it right now. After completing the new trunk floor portion of the project, I wanted to focus on the quarter panels and the tail panel protection. I lined the quarter panels and the wheel wells of the trunk interior with some more foam insulation. The idea here is to try and prevent sounds from resonating in the cavities that will be formed from this project. So this is the stuff that I used for the sound deadening of the trunk project. So basically it's just some duct insulation by Frost King, and you can see the specs right there. And it cuts really easy, and it's just basically some foam with one side sticky, and then the rest of the, the whole thing on the outside is just lined with some aluminum film, and it works pretty good. And I just pretty much use this to line the whole trunk as a sound deadener. I then started on the rear tail lamp cover portion of the project. I plan to make little access panel doors so that I can change the light bulbs, since this panel will completely cover the tail lamp area of the trunk. Here's a close look at the cutout for the trunk lock housing. I made the cuts around and close to the shape of the housing. I wanted the panel to touch the lock housing, but the ears of the housing was preventing it, shown with the arrows. I had to make 2 notches to get a tighter fit. What's left was cutting out access doors for the light bulbs of the tail lamps. But since I want to make the doors symmetrical to each other, I need both side panels figured out so I can get proper measurements. With the tail panel installed, I can now start making a cardboard template for the side panels. Then I immediately started on the template for the trunk hinge cases. The plan is to bolt the hinge cases to the Nova's trunk hinge supports. Here's the hinge case. Simple, but definitely took a lot of time to make, as it's custom cut and modified to fit my car. Many of the small changes I needed were made by manually sanding the wood with 60 grit sandpaper. Then went back to finalize the side panel templates. I cut them to size and inserted them in between the tail panel and the new hinge cases. For the passenger side, I found that I could not install a side panel because of the factory jack mount. There were 2 parts that got in the way of installing the large panel, so I had to cut and remove them out of the trunk. With those 2 parts gone, I now had the clearance I needed. I transferred the templates over to 1/4" MDF material and made it as a rough cut, then used sandpaper on a door block to fine-tune it. Here is an overview of the custom trunk so far. It's getting there, but not done yet. Still, a couple more parts are needed, and smash the like button! Now comes the back wall. I started to make a template, but noticed that there was an unfinished area that would clash with the finished product I had visualized in my head. So I had to make a cover for the area shown by the arrows. First, I made sure both hinge cases were squared, then noticed 2 large holes that I could use to help mount the new cover. I cut some wood pieces that would fit into those holes to hold the new panel, and the new panel was made out of 1/8 inch pressboard. Here's the new panel in place. This will tie the finished look all together. Now I can do the back wall, which will be a door. With the walls of the hinge cases plumb and square, I can get good measurements which will be symmetrical and allow the door to open and close smoothly. I opted for a hidden handle. When installing the handle, I did compensate for the thickness of the handle by cutting a notch on the edge of the door. And for the hinge, I decided on a piano hinge. Here's the results of my designed trunk enclosure. A lot of work, but this was planned for years. There's still more details to the design. Well, as you saw, that trunk got a serious makeover. I mean, I put in some serious Reborn love into that trunk. And I got a nice flat surface for groceries or whatever. I got my storage compartment for tools like a jack or whatever. And I got protection for my quarter panels. And of course, the tail panel lamps, they're protected as well. I mean, it's looking great. But as you saw, it's all made of wood. And I can't just leave it like that. So all of those beautiful pieces has to come right back out. And I decided that I wanted to paint them with oil-based satin black paint. That way I can protect the wood against moisture, mold, etc. So all of those pieces definitely had to get that treatment. And then after I'm finished with that, well, I can't just install it like that. I can't just put painted pieces. It has to look finished. So of course it's got to get upholstered. And I'm not taking those pieces to an upholstery shop because I'm the only one that knows how to put it back in. So I guess that means that I got to do the upholstery work. And here's how I did it. All were removed and painted. The edges, front and back were all coated. Then I started the upholstery process. The theme will be black vinyl and red from the car's body. I started with the hinge cases first. This unit will be bolted to the car and it's the only part of the design that needs to be put together in the trunk. This unit cannot go in or come out without dismantling it first. The subfloor panels for the trunk were screwed into the steel skeleton frame that lies underneath. Next, I tackled the panel that goes in between the two hinge cases. This was a very easy panel to upholster. Next, I had to do the rear tail panel. This panel is the largest panel. Now you can see the access door holes for the tail lights. Since I will not make any other access points on the tail panel cover, I needed to ensure that I can access the license plate light easily. The solution was to make the power wire longer. This will enable me to take the license plate light assembly out of the driver's side access door to change the bulb if needed. The upholstery around the latch area came out perfect. I installed the panel that goes in between the hinge cases with 3M double-sided tape and a screw on the bottom. For the screws, I prepped them with acid to etch them and painted them with Trek bed coating to get them to look black. Here's the tail panel cover access doors upholstered. Here are the access doors installed. Notice that they do not have any handles. They have magnetic touch latches. For the door, I wanted it to be snug against the side hinge cases. To do this, I made sure to wrap the edges with the foam headliner material. This allowed the snug fit and allowed the door to move freely. The sides compress easily, and that is what is allowing the freedom. This panel is pressed against the tail panel piece and hinge cover as well as the top of the trunk and subfloor. I put them into position. Fits nicely into position, not too tight, just right. Finally, I now can see my vision coming to life, and I can finally say I'm done with the upholstery material of all my panels. So what do you think? Trunk has come a long way and it looks great. And some would say, you know what, you're done. You're pretty much done. You reupholstered it and the only thing needed is a carpet on the bottom of the trunk floor and you're done. But I'm not done yet. I can't just leave it all black because my theme is red and black. Basically the whole car's theme has always been red and black with a little bit of chrome or silver here and there. As you can see, it doesn't have any red. So that's what's left to do. I need to put some accent panels and that will bring in the red to kind of break up the black so it doesn't look all dark and gloomy. For you guys wondering, how long did this take? Well, it took years to plan out. And then of course, after I found out about the hatchbacks, it went pretty quickly from there. And the planning and cutting and all this, the upholstery work, all of that stuff took roughly about 1 full month to complete. I mean, maybe I had a couple days off here and there from the project. Maybe I had things that I needed to do and I couldn't get into the garage. But roughly about 31 days it took me to complete it. No lie. It was a lot of work, a lot of planning. Yes, I probably made a couple mistakes here and there, and then I had to redo parts. Like for example, the tail panel portion, I actually made one completed set, and one complete part. And I found that the material that I was using in the beginning, because of the way I had to cut it, it cracked very easily. So as you saw, I went with some fencing material, basically some cedar incense fence panels, and that was much stronger and resistant to the way I needed to have that trunk tail panel cover created or constructed. Let's move on to the materials I use for the upholstery process. Now, if you looked at the photos, you might have noticed that all of the panels and pieces of the entire trunk project that I upholstered had a look of like a plush or soft, poofy look to it. And when I was building each of these parts, I actually used screws to put it together. I mean, it's basically just wood and, basically construction materials were used, just screws and things like that. Those screws and imperfections of the wood, I did not want to see in the finished product. But you put, vinyl over it, there's a chance that if there's an imperfection, it might show through the vinyl over time. And I didn't want that. So what I ended up doing was I purchased some headliner material in addition to the vinyl, so that I can line first each part with the headliner material. Now if you looked at headliner material, you'll notice that it has like a 1/16 of an inch of foam to the material. That would take up any of the imperfections found on the wood, or if I put screws or whatever. And it will also take the form or shape of certain objects. Like for example, the trunk latch. It had like two little points on either side, and I didn't have to worry too much about cutting perfectly if I'm going to use headliner material, because the headliner material can be crushed very easily, and of course because it's foam, it'll also kind of conform to imperfections. So that's a tip I can offer you guys. Headliner material and vinyl, you put them together and it'll take up some imperfections, and it'll just make it look so much more better, because it'll conform to any imperfection in your project. And the other thing that's good about the headliner material is, well, you see this project was a lot of pieces, basically just piece after piece, and they all touch each other in some way, form, or whatever. And the headliner material allowed each of these pieces to snugly go up against each other and not have an air gap or some type of ugly looking gap in between each of the pieces. If you cut the material, you cut the pieces slightly, imperfect. For example, the headliner material and the vinyl will take, some of that away when you're putting it together, because it's going to press up against the other portion of the project, and the headliner material and the vinyl will kind of conform to the imperfections. So that's one tip I can offer you guys as far as upholstering that I found worked for this particular project. Another question that you guys might wonder is weight. How much does it weigh? Well, when I was building it, and I'm going to show a picture right here, right now. When I was building it, I weighed the steel skeleton and the wood studs that were placed in the steel skeleton. I weighed that just to get an idea of how much I'm putting into the trunk. Now, I'm not worried about weight because I have a nice big V8 engine and the car is a cruiser. It's not a race car. I'm not trying to take weight out. I wasn't really concerned that much, if you get my drift. It had enough power, it had enough torque to carry a little bit of weight. And of course, I'm going to be putting stuff in the trunk, so that's just additional weight. So just so that you know, well, yeah, definitely less than 25 pounds for that. And then of course, if you factor in all the wood and the upholstery and stuff, I'm definitely guessing somewhere around 40 pounds were added to the trunk for this project. Now, for the red that's going to go in there is basically some accent pieces, which you will see in the next video. So stay tuned for that. That was definitely some planning involved in that. I needed to kind of figure out how I wanted the trunk to look. And there's a couple key features that I wanted in the trunk, which you will see when I post that video in the next episode. You can see that I opened it up just a little bit, but I stopped in short of opening it up fully because, well, you had to see how the trunk was created. Now, of course, it's only opened up a little bit, but in the next video, it gets opened up a little bit more. So if you want to get the chance to actually see how the trunk actually gets completed, the next part 4, is definitely the reveal of this trunk. Now, bear in mind, this was created back in 2014. So we got definitely some years of use out of this trunk, and you get to see how it looks today. So be sure to hit that subscribe button if you don't want to miss another episode, and definitely hit that bell icon. That way, when I load up that video, you get notified and you can see the full reveal of the trunk project. And if you like this video, please hit that like button. It helps tremendously. It helps people find the video easier. It also lets me know that I'm doing a good job showing you what I did to the Nova. And of course, it's for the YouTube algorithm. Just a click and we're done. I mean, just that little click and we're golden. So happy that I'm able to share this with you guys. And if you guys have any questions, hit up that comment section below. I read every single one of them. So go ahead and utilize that section there to communicate with me. And as always, hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching. And stay tuned for the next episode. You get to see what it looks like.